Welcome back. You're watching the Front Row. Thank you for staying with us. We're analyzing President Uhuru Kenyatta's State of the Nation address delivered today at the joint sitting of the Senate and the National Assembly. And this was his second last State of the Nation address, an address that took more than 2 hours. Some have described it as very long. Professor Menya here says that the president took considerable amount of time just listing the projects that have been done, but there's a bigger picture to it. We'll be questioning that in a short while. But there seems to be a bit of disappointment that the president really didn't come out very clearly on the question of debt. But he also took some time to talk about the Big Four agenda. Let's take a look at what the president said before we get back.
Is that we have doubled our real GDP. We have also doubled our road network across the entire republic. Besides the roads infrastructure, my administration has made the largest infrastructure project in a century with the construction of the standard gauge railway. In respect of roads infrastructure, when my administration came to the helm, there were 11,200 kilometers of tarmac road constructed by 4 previous administrations in 123 years. Like I said, I include the colonizers as well. In 8 years, my administration has multiplied what the previous administrations have done by a factor of 2. We have built 10,500 kilometers of road across the republic, and doing so 15 times faster than previous administrations, and I will expound on this in a little while. The most notable intergenerational quest is what inspired the Big Four agenda as a strategic guide for my second term in office. To do so, my administration and our colleagues in both tiers of government had to make commitments towards a transformation in 4 key areas of intent. The first one is liberating our people from the poverty of dignity caused by inadequate services. The second is transitioning our people, especially our youth, from being recipients of handouts to producers of goods and services, as well as owners of capital. The third is building a holistic base of human capital that is food secure and health assured. And the fourth is the restoration of the dignity and the pride inherent of one owning a decent home.
Right, just some bits of what the president said in that address today and what he chose to focus on. Just before we went on a break, Prof, I told you to hold a thought, and we were talking about the debt question. You began by saying you were disappointed that he should have been a bit more clearer about where we are debt-wise. What should he have said that he didn't?
Actually, if I was in the president's shoes, I would have spanned that information. If you look at the data you showed there, debt went up from 2013 to now, from about 45% of the GDP to about 68.1% of the GDP. Yes. And then he gave some data and showed that the GDP has grown. So the way we calculate debt is you get debt divided by GDP, and you get the debt ratio. So if GDP has gone up, it means the country can absorb more debt. And that's what he should have told us, and we feel good about ourselves. So I think that's an area that should have been explained more. Number 2, he talked about infrastructure, and that most of that infrastructure, whether it is road in the countryside, expressway, and so on, is being financed by debt. And he should have made it clear that by building the infrastructure, by improving the productive capacity of the economy, we are making the economy more productive in the future. So that debt is not being wasted. It is increasing the potential of the country to be more productive in future. People might not like debt now, but they like it in future. And I think another thing that he left out, I wish he had mentioned it, is he talked a lot on how much money we are giving to the counties. Yes. I would have wanted somebody to say how much money are the counties generating. Because when I travel to the countryside now, and I look at the counties, I see the beautiful hotels that have been built there. But I'm not seeing the new factories that have been built there. So people should not develop their counties because they are being given money, but because they should also generate income. They should invest, they should come up with new industries. So I expected that to come. One more thing I expected to hear from him is the future. I wanted him to talk about Vision 2030. Yeah. To what extent are we likely to meet it by 2030? The African Union has something called Agenda 2063.
63.
I expect him to talk about that. So although he talked so much about the past, he would have talked also about the future.
Correct.
So that as a young man, as a young child, I see a future being drawn for me. And I aspire to be part of that future. But maybe that's what he is going to say in his last State of the Nation address.
Could be.
I hope so.
It could be. He has one more shot to go.
Yes.
So we hope that, and there are also, within that, we also have a few public holidays that he will also and there will be speeches.
You are talking like a Kenyan.
So we hope that some of these things will come out then. Prof, on the debt question, just before we went on a break, you had a lot of concern that the president seemed to have missed out on the big picture. What is this big picture you're talking about?
There you go.
Let me go back to what Prof has said, and on this one, I agree with him 100%.
For once.
For once.
For once. Yes. You see, the president, whether we like it or not, the president is our leader. He is our leader. The country is transitioning, and the country is getting into a future, and Prof has highlighted that very, very well, that the president needed to make us hopeful about the future. That yes, I mean, our democracy is intact, our economy is intact, our security is intact. He mentioned those things, but as projects, unfortunately, not in terms of the broader collectives. And just like as Prof Iraqi has mentioned, when it comes to the issue of debt, again, I agree with him 100% that the president should have looked at it, should have linked it with those particular goodies that he was mentioning to us in terms of how we're doing better, but also be a bit honest about it, that yes, we are strained, because we know we are strained. You could blame COVID if you wanted to, to blame something. But on the other hand, to put us in perspective, that guys, we have grown our economy, we are collecting better money, and there are stresses that we still have. Because number one, we're talking about the trickle down, but on the other hand, we are also talking about debt pressure that we're getting with these, international agencies wanting us to restructure all sorts of institutions and so on, and this is how we're going to go about it. And again, to me, this is not an issue of failure, as it were. And then Prof also highlighted again very, very powerfully, and I want to build on that, really, because, I mean, he makes a lot of sense. One of the biggest things that this country has attained is devolution. And this, whether we like it or not, devolution has actually happened in President Uhuru's term, really. It's when the constitution was changed back his time, but the reality,
2013,
the reality happened in Uhuru's term. And just like Prof was saying there correctly, and I believe that yes, we're pushing from national level to create jobs, to make you feel better, to make you have money in your pockets. But then what's the role of the counties in advancing that broader national agenda? So I expect a bit of reflection from our president, because as a president who's leaving office. So on one hand, he's giving us hope, but on the other hand, as a great leader that he is, I'm not saying Uhuru is a good leader. I'm not saying he's a failure. As a great leader that he is, he should also be, cautioning us and advising us that, guys, we created this baby, and this baby is the opportunity for us in the future. He mentioned it as a by the way on the issue of the failure of BBI. That said, look here, my government gave 15% to the counties, but in fact, had BBI even worked out better, we would have given 35%. But that's only one thing. We should have reflected a lot more that, okay, fine, what did we expect the counties to do? How do your life, Akisa, me and you, be better, be transformed by having county governments? And what insights are we actually getting? And how can we fix some of these things? Because leadership, as far as I'm concerned, is not braggadocio. It is not just saying, this is what I did, and I'm the greatest. Leadership sometimes is also reflective. To say, look here, this is where we wanted to go. And we moved forward. Yes, compared to other people. we have actually moved forward significantly. And in Uhuru's speech, there are many examples where Kenya has moved forward significantly. Last but not least, let me highlight an issue.
Right.
There are things the president should have also really highlighted a little bit better. COVID-19.
He started with that.
COVID has hit us, and the president highlighted it. But on the other hand, I think one of the real successes of the Uhuru government, apart from the handshake that stabilized everything else, I think with all my radical opinions on these issues, I think the Kenya government actually did very, very well in terms of managing COVID.
He talked about that. That was the very beginning of
exactly.
his speech.
And he spent a lot of time on it.
A lot of time on
it. And on these ones we agree. What you're saying is that where our country has done well, and this is to all Kenyans. We're not just here because we have a mind and we want to post things that are happening outside there. Kenya is actually a best practice on COVID.
Okay.
And we appreciate that.
Let's get the closing remarks. We have very few minutes to go. Prof, I know you want to come in on this.
Two simple things. I think this issue of devolution is always seen positively, and I see it positively because with the devolution, you're supposed to take resources to the people because they know their needs better. Yes. But it seems that nowadays people are waiting for resources to be brought to them, not generate new resources. The other problem with devolution, which worries me, is that the whole world is talking about globalization, the East African community, the African free trade area. But if you look at the current conversation, is about the counties, and we are missing the big picture. That this country will not grow by looking inward, but by looking outward. And we need to do that. So I wish we could probably look more outward than inward. And he is keeping on hammering that the president should have said this. I'm also saying the same. But I think it's the time we declared war on Afro-pessimism.
Correct.
This is the only country in the world where people do anything to bring you down. It doesn't matter how good thing you do. Somebody will say, but. He's a good husband, but. She's a good broadcaster, but. I think we need to stop using that word but, so that when somebody does something good, we say it is good. And we should also spend more time encouraging people, encourage the president, encourage your neighbors, encourage your children, so that we start seeing things more positively instead of being Afro-pessimists.
Right. As usual, always being very optimistic. Prof, thank you. I'll have you get your final remarks, and I take a look at a few tweets, then we wrap up.
What you're actually saying...
Perhaps what you expect in the next State of the Nation address?
What you're actually saying, in fact, as far as I'm actually concerned, there's no pessimism. What you're saying is that the president can do better. Fortunately, the president has the next State of the Nation address. And what you want is leadership from the president. We don't want the president to be listing projects. That is for PSS and CSS and people down there. We want a great leader who will promise us a future, who's pushing the continent into this borderless trade that he talks about. The guy who's in charge of the Security Council, the guy who's saying, look here, these things are possible. Guys, these things are possible, and we're doing them in Kenya, and you guys can actually do them. And we're assisting you as government to actually do it. I want to see a president that's not soaring up there. I'm not saying Uhuru is a failure, but all I'm saying, Uhuru is also a leader. And part of his responsibility is to inspire me.
I mean, he did that with his statistics.
He is to inspire me.
So today you were not inspired?
I wasn't inspired today. Okay. So I'm giving the president a chance again to inspire me in the next state of the nation address.
Akina, this guy has political ambitions, and he should declare them now.
On the show.
And we give him a chance to go to parliament or get a position next year. We see what he can do.
Okay, let's take a look at what Kenyans are saying.
Instead of bashing other people.
Let's take a look at what Kenyans are saying.
I'm getting it there.
James Mwadegu says, majority of what the president said are visible. The nation needed to hear what plans he has for the economy to recover, debt management, climate change, electoral reforms, and smooth transfer of power post-elections. Very important, James. Thank you for that point. Omozeli Souza says the president said nothing meaningful to the low class. Kenyans are hungry. Mr. President, stop addressing the rich and start addressing the poor. Recently, you advertised jobs about building. The upcoming constructors have the money to do it. Where is fairness? The rich enjoy. Alinor Ikwana says the president and his speechwriters expected you or us to know our problems better than them. The speech was tediously longer for nothing. Sitatunga Coffee says the State of the Nation address was mediocre, long-winded, a repeat of the Mashujaa Day speech. It even tired the president himself because he could sense. So corruption, wastage and debt loom very large, cracking down on wastage and sleaze priority. And finally, Bernard Onywoki says somehow yes on the question we asked on whether it met his expectation, and says infrastructure and health, yes, but should have told us how we will pay the national debt, lower the cost of living, especially basic commodities, as well as address CBC. Thank you all for joining us. A lot of your comments, I can't possibly read all of them, but thank you for engaging with us on just what were your expectations and whether they were met in that State of the Nation address. And of course, we'll continue to have this conversation even as we break down these issues for you. Joining me here in studio, Professor Alfred Omenya, is a governance expert here and commentator on current affairs issues. Thank you for joining us. And Professor XN Iraqi, who's an economist. They were classmates. So I hope you will not be, there'll be no punches after the show. Thank you for joining us. You're watching.
No guarantees. we need a handshake.
Till next time.
No, we need a handshake.
We need a handshake. Yes. Thank you for watching. Till next time.
Thank you.